is Dolores Williams of DWS View. Stand up. Today, I want to talk about my special sponsor. My sponsors help keep this show on the road. My sponsor today is Mr. Craig Candelore of the Men's Legal Center. If you are looking for great legal counsel, please contact Craig Candelore. You can go to Craig at menslegal.com. I'm sorry, Craig Candelore of menslegal.com. This is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. If we do not stand up for what we believe, who will? Today, I have the privilege of introducing a very special lady. My audience, I want to thank you for coming on again today. Each week you come on and you bless me and you bless this audience. So I'm thankful to have you. And I have a special guest today, and her name is Jeniffer Sedlock. I want to tell you a little bit about Jeniffer. For 25 years, Jeniffer has been a professional speaker, author, and a corporate trainer in the areas of leadership, communication, and teamwork. She also speaks for women's events in churches and coaches high school track and cross country. As a mother of three, Jeniffer found herself in the midst of a heated controversy in the elementary schools over yoga. Her family battled the school district in a trial that gained international attention. She will share behind the scenes of the California yoga trial with us and how yoga is spreading nationwide in schools. Her book is entitled The Yoga Crisis in America, a wake-up call to protect the children. Audience, please help me welcome Mrs. Jeniffer Sedlock. Good afternoon, Jeniffer. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Oh, great, great. I'm definitely looking forward to having this conversation with you. So we're going to go ahead and jump right in there. Now, what drove you, Jeniffer, to personally research yoga in schools, leading to the trial and the book that you have written?
Well, it's an interesting story. I basically stumbled upon it in the sense that I had three kids in the public schools in Encinitas, California, and a large-scale mandatory yoga came in, and it was the first district in the United States to have mandatory yoga. And we were all kind of opening our eyes to it. And so as I began the research to find out what is this coming in, why is there so much money involved, and, follow the money and you always find out what's really going on. And so that was really the beginning of it when the district was given a $500,000, and it ended up being $4 million in 3 years for placing yoga. And the whole goal of the foundation who gave the money was to create the curriculum to take it nationwide. And this was a foundation from basically from India, the type of Ashtanga yoga. So, there's the curriculum has been created. It is going across the nation, and we created a website to try to help educate parents. And then, I was called to write a book, and I'm like, okay, I don't really want to write a book. I haven't written a book. I'm a speaker. I love speaking. I don't love writing, but I took the time to really research it and use research from, there's hundreds of us that were battling it just in that one district alone. And I get calls from parents all over the country, and I get ex-yogis from other countries calling. Oh. This is a lightning rod issue.
Yes, it is. Now, so you're still having that battle in the Encinitas School District, I assume.
Well, interestingly enough, yes, they are still doing the yoga in the Encinitas district. Of course, with COVID, everything sort of stopped, and we thought, oh, maybe they're not going to do yoga in schools. Maybe we finally, there was another way it stopped. But no, now they're doing it through video, and it's continuing to progress. And so not only is the Ashtanga yoga through what was first Joyce Foundation, and as we went through a court trial, they actually changed their name to Sonoma. They've spread throughout 8 or 9 states already, but there's also a lot of other yogas coming into the schools now.
Wow. Now, do you think they're coming in because of this group that started?
That's paving the way. There were people trying to get in before that, and they were less successful, and they were found to be too religious. And even when it came down to our court case, the judge ruled yoga is religious, and so we thought, okay, we've won. But the kids they don't really realize it's religious, and it's cleaned up enough for our school district.
Oh.
That doesn't even make sense. So it was begging an appeal. And so we went to the appellate level as well. And I write about a lot of that in the book, and everything, every court reporter note, everything you could want to know about the trial, because a lot of schools, law schools, attorneys, they're looking at this case as the foundational case in this whole arena, really. And there have been multiple cases since then. In fact, the expert witness from our case has been working on many other cases. And she has a book as well. For those of you who can see, and for those of you who are listening in, I'll read the title: Debating Yoga and Mindfulness in Public Schools, Reforming Secular Education or Reestablishing Religion. And Dr. Candy Gunther Brown had been studying this for over 20 years as a religious studies professor when our case came up, and she immediately called the attorney and said, hey, do you need some help? And we were like, yes, we're praying for somebody to come along that has, it's funny because everyone in this whole, I don't know what you'll call it, a journey or a battle, is we were all called to different parts of it. And I believe as a speaker, I was called to this part to get the word, spread the word out. But there were hundreds of us in all different capacities working on all different parts of this. And so even the attorney that was on the case, we didn't choose him. He was already there before I was, helping the parents in the district to take a look at it.
Well, that's great. It's amazing how God works things out.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Now, do you know how many schools are involved?
Well, at last count, I think 940 schools across the nation, but the last count of that was in 2015. So here we are in 2020. I don't know. But there are all kinds of studies that continue to be done. But we know that it is growing exponentially. It is just exploding in preschools, in colleges. There are colleges who now mandate all freshmen have to take a yoga class. There are even Christian colleges that are placing this in their college, and it's fascinating how much it's growing. But we are focused mostly on the elementary students, because the mission statement on Joyce Foundation's website was, we want to be in every single elementary school in the United States. And we said, why? Why? We just kept asking why, and what else is out there. We just continued to ask questions, and we even put the first 30 questions we had on the first page of our website, truthaboutyoga.com. It's like, what were we concerned about? Why is this foundation paying all this money? Why is it have to be this yoga? Why is it mandatory? Why can't some kids opt to do PE? Why can't we opt out of this? There were so many layers of questions beyond the religion. But what could we take to court? It was 2 things. Number one, any kids that forced the opt-out were not getting their mandatory PE minutes. In California, that's 100 minutes a week or 200 every 2 weeks. So 60 minutes was yoga. So if you were opted out, which hundreds of kids were, they weren't getting their PE, and they were breaking the law by not giving us the PE. The second one was the whole, religious versus, government institutions. You're not supposed to have religion in schools. Well, you pulled out all the prayer, you pulled out anything Christian, but now we're putting in something else. And we all know when you have a vacuum and you pull things out, something else is going to come in.
Oh, yeah. Well, did they ever give you an answer for it?
Well, what we did is, and this is actually covered in the first chapter of the book, is what all happened the fall of 2012, because that's when we were basically announced at back to school meetings that, oh, guess what? We have this new yoga. And there's a lot they didn't tell us, that it was being paid for, that it was mandatory, all these things. But we, as a parent group, a parent group formed and went to every meeting for the 4 months and went to the board saying, this crosses our religious boundaries. And half the time it was the kids going home to the parents and telling them, hey, I think what we're doing doesn't fit with what I learned at church last week.
Oh.
So the kids were already starting to realize that the idols in the room, the bowing down, the music, something was wrong. They felt it as Christian children. So interestingly enough, we spent 5 months going to the board and really got no response beyond, we're keeping it, it's great, it's not religious, it's not religious, it's not religious. We're like, by our standards it is, and you can't tell us what our standards are. And so they said, you can't opt out. Well, we opted out anyway. And they said, well, it's like opting out of math. Now you're not going to get a grade. And I mean, it was yeah.
That sounds like it was total indoctrination, or else.
Well, that's what we'd call it. Of course, they'd say, no, that's not what we're doing. They're just trying to calm them down and exercise. But, for kids that are, let's say, an ADHD kid, they're sitting in class for 6 hours. And so now you want them to lay on a floor and stretch for another hour? This is not what our kids need. They need to run and play. We're talking elementary kids, 5 years old, 6 years old, 7 years old. They don't need to be more flexible. They are flexible. They need to run and play. And that's how they get their stress levels down.
Yeah. Now, Jennifer, I understand. Now, you went to court. Now, how did the judge rule, and why did he rule the way that he did?
Well, there were a lot of factors involved, and there were a lot of facts stacked on our side. So everybody was pretty surprised, even the other side at the end. But his end-all ruling was, yoga is religious, but it's cleaned up enough here. And we have gone through like all the information. I actually go chapter by chapter. Like the first 4 chapters are about the last, like I said, the first chapter is about just what us parents went through. Then the second one, third and fourth are about who is Joyce Yoga, what is Ashtanga Yoga, because most people don't know. And then just kind of a background to what led to the trial. Then we have a chapter on, well, who are all these people? Like cast of characters, because there's going to be a lot of names in the trial and people aren't going to know who they are. And so we lay it all out, because we've got involved Stedman Graham, Deepak Chopra. I mean, there's a lot of high level people with lots of money involved in this whole Encinitas district yoga. So goodness. When you really look behind the screen, remember the Wizard of Oz, you look behind the scene, you see a lot of the people involved. And so chapters like 7 through 13, I literally take there were 6 days of trial and 1 day of the verdict. Each day of trial is a chapter, and I condense it to maybe about 30 pages to just go through really some of the court happenings and the parts that are fascinating. And it's really a reaction to, what have people asked me over the years? Well, what happened in court? And what about this? And what about that? So that's why I wrote this book, to kind of place. And you can go read the 250-page court reporter note from that day, or the 30 pages of mine, and see the gist of what happened.
Now, I know you're concerned spiritually. How?
Sure.
Tell us about that, because you're a Christian, and this yoga doesn't coincide with your Christian faith. So.
Well, right. And there's a lot of Christians who love yoga, and there's a lot of Christians who feel like it's a warning not to. And herein is where we have lists of biblical references as well, because it gets to what are you worshiping, what idols. And if you look in any ashram, any yoga studio, you will find the idols, and they come in the form of incense and bells and Buddhas and all kinds of different symbolism that go with the Hindu religion. And most of yoga is based in the Hindu religion. And of course, there's been some more copying and all of that. And a lot of people in America would say, well, I'm not getting into all that. That's just over in the corner. I'm not looking at that. I'm praying to Jesus. Well, a lot of Christians had asked me, is it okay for me to do this kind of yoga, YMCA yoga? And I say, honestly, pray to God, go to your yoga class, and he will answer you. And that's kind of the easy answer, because you can't solve it for everyone. It's like, it's almost like topics of abortion, or, we all can argue about all these things, but when you get to biblically, what does the Lord say? It's in Deuteronomy, and I'll tell you where these pages are. If you go on truthaboutyoga.com and you go on the education events, you will see you got a handout right there of all the biblical locations, hundreds of them, and where he speaks about all of the, let's talk in particular the sun salutations, because that's the one that's specific to Ashtanga yoga. And one of the things that we prove, and we've got pictures of, is they said at court, oh, we are not doing Ashtanga yoga. Well, the foundation who gave them $4 million, that's all they do is Ashtanga yoga. So it's like, what do you mean you're not doing this? And they had it posted on the wall, all the sun salutations, which is a sequence of yoga postures that have to start with. Well, first of all, that series is still posted on the wall 3 years after they said, we're not doing Ashtanga yoga. Well, they're still doing it. And the kids have memorized it so much that they don't even need it on the wall. They should have taken it off the wall, but they didn't. So the kids it's a sun salutations, meaning a worshiping to the sun. And when you look at what the 8 stages of Ashtanga yoga, and again, we have this on the website and it's in the book, the third one is asanas, which is our postures. And that's the only thing Americans think of. Oh, I'm just doing all these postures. Well, there's 8 steps to it. There's breathing. There's the forced, it's not regular breathing, it's forced breathing. It's a special way. And all of them are under Sanskrit names. And when you look at what the Sanskrit language is, it's a religious language written for yoga. And so for example, what you may know, if you know nothing about yoga, you still have seen in America now the Om symbol. What does Om mean? If you really look at it, it is that vibration, and it's trying to get you into the chakras. So I don't want to get too deep into it, but let me go to an easier example. Namaste. Some people think that's like aloha, hello and goodbye. It is not. It means, and it's always with the prayer hands and the bowing, it means I see the God in you and you see the God in me. And it's not the God that Christians are talking about. It is at one with the universe. So there's just simple language barriers to us understanding what's really going on. And they were making the kids say, bow to the teacher and say namaste on the way in and say it on the way out. And there's all this symbolism and all kinds of things that were continued in the school district.
Now, I have a question now. For people who go to the gym, and I know my husband used to take yoga, and they take yoga, and I know they have to do the hand symbols and cross the legs and all of that. Is all of that tied to the same ideology that you're talking about? There is meaning in what is done, even, and I know some people say, it's harmless to just exercise with yoga. So is it all harmless, or, if you're just doing it for exercise? But is there meaning, even if you're doing it just for exercise? Is there meaning in all the movement that takes place when people are doing yoga?
Well, you can bet we did a ton of research on that, because that was the foundational question for especially Christians of, can I be doing this? If I don't want to lead down the path towards Hinduism, should I be doing this? Because at some point that's incongruent, because it really is an opposite path. You're either on the path to seeing a God that's divine and separate from you, or if you're on a path of Hinduism, it's I am God. It's the universal. So really, and one of the things that the former yogis taught us is that no matter what, and why they are tricking people to start yoga without, really pushing the spiritual side of it, is because you will grow into it. What's the best word? There's a word I can't remember at the moment, but it's, you will, grow towards that over time. And so their concern, we had ex-yogis calling us right away when they found out that it was in our schools, and they said, you've got to get it out, because it will lead to demonic paths. And we were like, what? Like we had to continue to research. So that generic yoga that people think is so fine in the United States, people have to consider it themselves and do a little of the research. but it starts to lead you on a path of opening up to more and more and more. It's one of those, like the frogs boiling in the pot. If you jump in the cold water, you don't think much about it, and it grows and it grows. Here's an example. Even if it was YMCA yoga for kids for 7 years, let's say they do it all through their elementary years. Now it's the norm. It was obviously accepted by all of the administration, all of the parents. So it is the norm. So why is there holy yoga? Let's look at it from the perspective of there's no holy volleyball. Is there? No. Why? Because it's not spiritual. Okay. They have to, so there's a spiritual element. I wouldn't even want volleyball 30 minutes, or what is it, 60 minutes a week, every week for 7 years for the kids, because it's not, not everybody loves volleyball, right? So why would we do that with yoga, even if it was just an exercise? Let's just say for the sake of that, we'd be a volleyball nation in 1 decade. So now we're looking at being a yoga nation in 1 decade, and we do believe it's spiritual. And we do see the results. And the ex-yogis, we've got a lot of them on our website, a lot of books. And one of the things I was going to respond to in your question is Ravi Maharaj can speak to this way more than us Americans, in that he was a Hindu guru. He did grow up in that religion. He has now become a Christian and moved out of it because he was worshiping a cow, and the cow started chasing him in the field. And he tells all about it in his book, Death of a Guru. It's a very famous book for the last 40 years. And so someone from that religion and from that culture who speaks, he comes to some of our events and he says, you can't separate the spiritual from the physical. So you can't do the physical yoga without the spiritual. Now he can say that, and it holds a lot of weight. So I'm trying to give you resources, because you just look at me and who are you to say I'm a mom of 3 kids in the district. But we've done this research and we feel very confident in, what we have found along the way. And that's what's kept us going, is that every step of the way when we said, is this nuts? Why are all these people seeing it this way? And God was so clear. Protect the children, protect the children. We have walls and fences around schools for a reason. We protect the children. And when the judge said, well, the kids wouldn't know anyway, it's like, who cares what the kids know? We are to protect them. We are the adults.
Yeah, but they do know from what
they do know. Oh, they want it in there. But why?
Yes. Now, why would someone from India take an interest in starting yoga in Encinitas? What drew this individual to your school district?
Well, the founder of Ashtanga Yoga, Patabi Joyce, was actually one of his students was who brought it in. But his grandson does work also at the ashram in Encinitas. Encinitas, for some reason, is the flow in of yoga came in through the Beatles. When you really research it, the Beatles brought the idea of yogis to us. And if you look at one of the oldest structures is the Self-Realization Center in downtown Encinitas. Okay, people kind of know what it is, but they drive by, they don't really know the significance of it. And students from our district were taken there, unbeknownst to the parents who thought they were going to historical sites. That's all they signed off on. But it was brought in for lots of reasons through Encinitas. But the main person was Sonia Tudor Jones. Her husband is a hedge fund billionaire, Paul Tudor Jones. And she obviously went over to India and was healed or something and decided that all American kids should have this. They had the financial backing and resources, as well as lots of people they know, because Stedman Graham is now doing their trainings. And like I said, they're all involved with the Deepak Chopra Foundation now. Our superintendent from our schools speaks for him. The assistant superintendent, who was in the trial and then went to another district and started the yoga there. There's another guy from downtown San Diego district who now is in New York. They've got it in New York and Texas. And it's just, when you really start to look at the web of it, and I lay it all out in the book, and we've even got tax records to show who got paid and who didn't. I mean,
goodness.
it's a big can of worms. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, my goodness. Now, you had one other paper that you had sent me about the top 10 points about yoga. And I was looking at that yoga, the physical exercise or spiritual indoctrination. And the problem with yoga in schools that it stretches into three areas: the physical, spiritual, and legal issues.
Yep.
And then you talk about the California yoga trial. We talked about that. And the attorney, I mean, God just worked it all out. Just looking at the notes here of the attorney that was just there, ready to assist you in what you were doing. And then, of course, the Jonas Foundation, I hear the mission was to have this yoga in every elementary school in the United States, and they still never did answer you why. And you know, you mentioned cows, people worshiping cows. Now, I've heard this before, that cows are very sacred in India and places where the Hindu religion, they're actually more sacred than human beings. They actually worship a cow. Is that correct?
They have over 220,000 gods. That
Oh,
is their belief. And so a cow is just one of them.
oh my
And so it's
goodness.
fascinating when you really do the research of what is this religion, what are the beliefs, and why,
Wow.
you know, when you really get into it, there's a lot of sexual oppression within yoga. There's a lot of sexual scandals. If you've heard, even, I mean, we've had multiple gurus um, that we've seen we have the articles on our website of them getting sued for sexual harassment. And we know a lot of that goes on in India, of course, as well. And so it's interesting because there's so many pieces to this. Like India courts took it out of their schools. They know it's their religion. And they said, wait, we've got Buddhists, we've got Christians, we can't put this in our schools. So if India takes it out of their own schools, why are we allowed? They even specifically said that California judge got it wrong.
Oh
So
my goodness.
yeah,
There's
we've even got.
something wrong with the people in this country. Oh my goodness. I was say, wake up, wake up, wake up.
I know, wake up, what's going on? It's just, it's crazy. But there's also physical issues. So I want to touch on this a little bit. Girls' hips, when they are young and growing into being women, and that's going to start around what, sixth, seventh, eighth grade, their hips are softening up. They should not be doing yoga.
Oh.
And we had a girl that we featured, and she's in the book and on the website too, that came forward who now can't do any sports. She was a soccer player, 6 months of doing the school yoga, and both her hips came unhinged, is the best word. They pop out, and so she can't do sports. And we warned about this. We warned the district this would happen because that's what the former yogis came and told us. I have lots of resources of that too. So you'll find there's tons of doctors who are against yoga, and then there's tons of doctors who are recommending yoga. So you've got both sides of it. I mean, it's just, it's frightening what's out there. And really, so we're just trying to push truth out. Like, what is really going on here with these kids?
Yeah, well, you know, it's unfortunate that the children seem to get caught up in the middle of all of these indoctrination things that come to children. And because they are impressionable.
And they had no choice in the matter, and no voice. And there was never like a survey of, what do you think about the yoga? Do you like it? No, because they were being paid for it. And you're talking about California schools that couldn't even afford to have PE teachers 15 hours a week. So you had this kind of hole in our system, and teachers were having to do the PE. Teachers don't want to teach PE. They want to teach their subject, so and they have a whole day's worth with elementary kids. So the last thing they wanted to do was PE. But that's where this kind of, I think, was ripe for the coming in, because when they here's some money and let's do this.
Now, is this yoga in other school districts? I know Encinitas, but in San Diego County, are there other school districts that have adopted yoga?
Yes, it's in over 9 states now, and you can find that information on. It's now called Sonoma Foundation. They changed it from Joyce Foundation after our trial, because the name kind of got too hot for them, so they changed it. And they changed some of their leadership.
But it's in all the schools here in San Diego County is what I'm.
No, not San Diego County, but Encinitas District, which is made up of 9 elementary schools.
Okay.
I know it's in Cajon Valley schools. I don't know how many schools they have. So it's not all over the county. And it's kind of, they've cherry picked across the nation in different places that it's gone in.
Okay.
They actually were targeting, if you look at their website, they were targeting young, poor neighborhoods, which is hysterical why they came into Encinitas, a very white, rich neighborhood is kind of interesting. Because it was completely off of what they said their goal was. So they did start in some schools in New York too, trying to help them with PE.
Yeah. Okay.
Physical education.
Well, I think with help like that, the parents, they don't need that kind of help.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, tell us again, Jennifer, again about your book, so that people want to get it, and we want to make sure.
Okay.
And also, you know, before you close, I want you to tell about your book and then tell how people can contact you.
Okay.
If you want to share that.
Yeah, the book is called The Yoga Crisis in America, a wake-up call to protect the children. You can just kind of Google Yoga Crisis. Once you get in Amazon, Yoga Crisis, it's also on Barnes and Noble. It's also on our website, truthaboutyoga.com. If you click on that one, it'll actually send you over to my speaker website, which is, because we're not allowed to sell it, that's a nonprofit, and so we sell it over on my speaker website. But all the profits go to the business and to just the business of trying to get the word out. But it's so that's at jenniferspeaks.com. And so any of those locations, but just hit Amazon. It's easy to pick up a book now. Right now, they've been a little backed up. It's also on ebook form. And why this is interesting is because there's thousands of links to articles, to things. Now, if you go on truthaboutyoga.com, that's got all the articles, that's got all the information, everything we've talked about and way more. And really that, you know, I can be emailed through both those sites, and phoned for, you know, if there's somewhere else you want to spread this information, there's a whole team of us who can come out and train, you know, anywhere from churches to school districts to, you know, just giving you, do you have an opt-out form or, you know, a sample? You know, parents want all kinds of things and information. So we're glad to help in any of that. And really, we're just here to be a resource. That's it. And the book, like I said, it kind of goes through what happened in our district, but more importantly, that third section is, what are the unintended consequences that happened? And so let me run through just a couple of those for you, because I think that let's talk about competition in America. It changes it, because think about all the sports we do. They're competitive. Yeah. Is yoga competitive? You're competing with yourself. You're also focusing on yourself. And we talk about the more you focus on yourself and the more you're worried about yourself, the more self-centered you're going to become. And the more we become, it honestly, it moves us from the democracy to a socialist nation. Yes. And that is part of it. So there's a lot behind here beyond just movements in a classroom. We also move into, what's the other one? Oh, the whole nature of the injuries. And I'm trying to find my little quick reference thing. We go into a demonic side of yoga that the ex-yogis taught us about. And has that happened in the classrooms? Has that happened to some students? Yes. Oh, and wow. They were surprised. They thought it would be more like 15 years before we'd see it. But we saw some things happening that were extremely concerning. And so we've got some examples of that on our website too. We talk about the sun and idol worship. Has America been duped is another chapter. The Hinduization of America. And then the fourth section really talks about what we did to prepare and how we were each prepared for this battle, and then how we're just messengers of information, and then what's going on with Sonoma now, what's going on with EUSD now. But a lot of people are more, and we end with hope. You know, what's the hope? What are we going towards? So, you know, I'm just looking at, you know, some of the chapters in the book to tell you, just really the gist of it is, so many things were hidden. And even through the website, they kept hiding things. And when people start hiding things, you got to wonder why.
Yes.
So really, I just have to say, in any of these things, just be curious. Just keep asking why, and you get to the layers of what's going on. And that's how, there were hundreds of us researching this, and we all got on a private Facebook, and we were saying, have you seen this? Have you seen this? This is happening at our school. So all of a sudden we had 9 schools communicating, and we saw the bigger picture, because it wasn't just happening at our school, it was happening. So we immediately knew when the superintendent said, okay, all teachers, you got to say this is the talking points. We would all see it and know, wow, okay. And as the couple who, we had been at this school for 9 years. I was on my 3rd kid coming through this school, and I was a volunteer. I ran their jogathon, the biggest fundraiser every year. The principal loved me before the lawsuit. And then all of a sudden, none of the teachers would talk to me. They would all look down, look away, and every one of them knew me. The only 2 that would talk to me after we filed the suit was my 2 kids' teachers. My older one was already out of the district. But it was a sad case. And I had teachers sneaking into the copy room to tell me, we are so behind you. Can you use my other email and give us the information? So we had teachers praying for it to be out. We had all kinds of people. We now have a newsletter, podcasts. We have all kinds of information on our website just to educate people. So this is not what I planned on doing.
Well, you don't control your destinies.
That's right. That's right. We never know when we'll be called to do something completely different.
Well, you know what? I'm thankful that you're obedient.
Thank you.
Because sometimes, people want to go off and do things on their own, or you have something else you want to do, but God called you and you're answering a call, and it's a call that's very much needed, because this is information that, had I not heard you on the Salt and Light Ministry call, I wouldn't have even known this information.
Absolutely. And
so
I thank you for that. And in chapter 2, I talk a little bit about the hardship for our family and what we went through, because not only were the teachers not looking at me, we had people calling with death threats. And I thought, this is yoga. What are you talking about? And that's where I started to realize this is way more serious than we thought. Yeah. I mean, people were vicious, and it was like, over yoga? What, why are you so vicious? And so there's this element of, once someone's done this for a long time, their personality starts to change, and they don't see the slow transition and shift. And that's why I'd say to anyone practicing yoga to say, if you're Christian, you definitely want to pray about it and ask God to reveal to you what you should do. And then, I get calls all the time. Oh my gosh, you're not going to believe this. I'm like, yeah, I believe it. But really, it's looking at what's the journey for you. And then for non-Christians alike, do you want to be going down this road of Hinduism? I don't know. But if you don't, then you check it, so.
Well, I think if people hear the facts that you've laid out, I don't know why they would even want to. You've laid out some powerful facts here, and I'm not saying people don't have a right to choose, but especially adults. But I have a problem with putting this kind of stuff on children, more or less forcing it on them, because like you say, they don't have a choice. They're in school. So anyway, thank you. Thank you so much, Jeniffer. I'm just so thankful to you for coming and sharing this information, man. And I just hope that it's a blessing to a lot of people.
Well, thank you so much for asking me.
Yes. I'm thankful. But anyway, we'll have to do a follow-up with you in the future and see where things are going.
Okay.
We'll have to do that. Anyway, thanks again. And to my audience, to those of you who are listening to this podcast, thank you for coming back each week. Again, I want to ask you to make sure you subscribe to my channel, and also would love to have you be a sponsor. And again, welcome to DWS View Stand Up. If we do not stand up for what we believe, who will?